Hi, everybody. Welcome to the latest Land of 10 Iowa Facebook Live session. I'm Bobby LaJess.
I'm Scott Dochterman. Welcome, everyone. I guess today we'll be talking about recruiting, but also feel free to chime in any football-related questions, wrestling, basketball, baseball, field hockey.
Or Valentine's Day help that you may need, considering today is Valentine's Day. So, yeah, anything's on the table. Any questions, as always, throw them in there. Terrence says, LOL. You laugh, but just our Valentine's Day advice will go a long way. It goes farther than, let's just say, a colleague I know of ours who texted me today at Land of 10 who sent his wife a Hawk Harrelson Valentine's Day card. Well, I think that may qualify for the Hall of Fame for Valentine's Day. I don't think said spouse will probably like it too much.
If she does, then she's definitely a keeper.
Yes, that's how you gauge if your wife is a Valentine's keeper.
That wouldn't go in my household, though. Well, it might be a Ron Santa one.
Insert whatever sport baseball team is appropriate for your household and or spouse. Yeah. So that's our first bit of advice for that. First question popping in. Max, the big quarterback out of Western Iowa for 2019. Where's he leaning, if at all? Great question there, because no one has really gotten much of a gauge from him. From anything I've seen or read or written out of any outlet, whether it's Omaha, the Iowa media, or the recruiting national media, on where he's going. I think most people expect Nebraska to have a very good shot there because, Council Bluffs is essentially Nebraska. It's in, technically it's in Iowa, but it's just across the river there. You have a very large, you do have an Iowa pocket there, you have an Iowa State pocket, but you also have a large Nebraska pocket there.
It's bigger, yeah.
And the fact that Scott Frost came in, the new coach they brought in was, the right kind of guy for any recruit in Nebraska to kind of go gaga over, especially a quarterback spread offense. I think you'd have to like their chances. I think you have to like Iowa's chances. I never rule out Matt Campbell at Iowa State from a recruiting standpoint with his chances because he's swung above his weight belt both at Iowa when he was back at Toledo. So I think you have those three. Ohio State threw an offer at him. If that's serious, I think you have to look at them. And Penn State, just because it's the same way, a pass-happy offense. I think you'll see the kid probably cut his limits down a little bit. The places he goes for junior days or shows interest in that way will probably tip his hand a little bit on where he goes. But I have no idea if he's really intrigued by the national programs or not. And that's going to be the deciding factor here. Sometimes a local or regional team can beat out, the Penn State on a kid if he really wants to stay local or really likes the local team. I just don't know if he's that kid.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, is he going to want to be within driving distance for his parents? Does it matter to him? Is it the most important thing? Does that mean Lincoln or Iowa City or, even Ames or Minneapolis matter? Or is it, hey, I want to go to the best program possible, and that could be Georgia or Ohio State. So I think, we'll know a little bit more. I know he wants to decide this spring, but and we also have a question from Jim. It says, sadly, Duggan won't be a Hawk now. I didn't know that. Did you know that he wasn't going to be a Hawk?
No, not the whole. I've heard other people say this because Spencer Petras is here. He won't come to a school that already has a 4-star quarterback. If that's the case, he's not going to any of those national programs that are after him because every year those guys bring somebody like that in. In some cases, especially at quarterback, guys will go in other spots because of that. Mm-hmm. But it's usually because they have a guy starting. Like Ohio State had a little bit of struggles with quarterbacks because you had J.T. Barrett starting there for what seemed like 10,000 years. Mm-hmm. So you're going to have guys who knew they weren't going to start because they already had the guy in place. That's how I see it going. Not where you brought in a guy in the year before, all of a sudden you're not going to come in now. That guy hasn't necessarily established himself. Georgia has brought in, I think we're on 3 straight classes now of 5-star quarterbacks. Like if that was the case, one of those guys wouldn't have gone there. And it's kind of the same way at Clemson now. Clemson's got a kid who's coming off starting this past year, right, and they've just brought in the #1 quarterback in the country. So that, kind of applies a little bit, but I don't think as much as people think too much. The point on Frost's system fitting his game is true with Max a little bit, but I don't know. Iowa's been in on him so long, they think it'll work within them too. There's a lot of reasons why you could say you could go to Nebraska. I'm not going to lie with you on that one. But I think the fact that you turn him down from Iowa because Iowa just brought in a kid who one of the recruiting services labeled as a 4-star is not a reason to kind of have him go against Iowa.
You don't want him anyway if he doesn't want to compete. Now, Tyler Wiegers was a 4-star. He got beat out by a 3-star.
Yep.
It happens. I mean, 4-star. Jay Christensen was a 4-star back in the day.
He might have been 5.
He was close. I mean, so you have great quarterbacks. So I just, you know what? If he's likes Iowa the best, why can't he beat out Peyton Manziel and Spencer Petras? If he doesn't, he doesn't. So I wouldn't worry about the other people because Iowa brings in a quarterback every year. If it doesn't, it's a failure. So.
Yeah. Who is
Brett?
The next one? Brett. Yes. I saw the question. Didn't see who it was from. It says, is linebacker another need, top priority for this class? I don't think it's a huge one because of the numbers they brought in this past year. You ended up with, 4 guys at the position. Yeah, there's a chance Meriwether becomes a linebacker or somebody who plays that. If they decide to play like a nickel or a 50 B more often, he's somebody who could mold into that. If he puts on enough weight, he could become a linebacker too, which is a different conversation. But I think you'll see him bring in 1 or 2 in this class, but I don't think it's going to be the kind of numbers you saw for them this year. The whole JUCO argument will be dictated on what they get out of their production out of it this year. So I would hold off on them there, but I think you'll see them bring in 1 or 2 because you kind of have to ensure you have enough numbers for that throughout the years. But I don't think you'll see them looking at 4. Like the final total was an 18.
I could see him going with about as many as 3. Jack Campbell, obviously from Cedar Falls, that they really like.
They'll go inside. He'd play inside. I think inside linebacker is what they're looking for.
Cameron Baker from Council Bluffs, and then across the river,
Heinrich. Yeah, I'm not sure how to pronounce it, but yeah, the legacy is that was a tennis player.
Yeah, from Omaha. So I would say chances are you probably get 2 of those in-state types. I would guess, Campbell's a really strong possibility. Certainly Baker, I think they're the favorite for that. And then maybe 1 more. And then, as Bobby said, who knows what these linebackers are this year. I mean, if they're good, then why do it? If you feel like, oh, wow, Seth Benson and Logan Klemp have a real future, and then you look at Dylan Doyle and Jaden McDonald the same way, or, maybe Amani Jones turns into a first-team All-Big Ten caliber player. We don't know that. So I think right now there's a lot of unknowns with the linebackers, but I do think if they pick up 2 or 3 just because they're versatile positions, and if one of them doesn't pan out, then a lot of times they become fullbacks.
Yeah. One other point on that with a kid from Omaha, I'm a little bit more hesitant on him, I think, than a lot of other people when it comes to recruiting, just because the kid's picked up some huge offers in the last month. Texas A&M came around. So that's Jimbo Fisher. I know Texas A&M isn't his old Florida State gig, but it's going to be viewed the same way with players. Penn State came around. The kid will have a shot to play wherever he wants.
Yeah.
When kids hit that national level of recruiting, it's hard to land up. Max is at the same spot. You might be able to bring 1 or 2 in for a class, but when you're looking at kids in-state or who have ties with a program like that, those are the ones you're going to go after to land because you have the best shot to land them. But if you go after 4 or 5 of them in a class, which it looks like it might very well be the case in 2019, bringing in 1 or 2 of them is a win. And anything beyond that is huge. And so, I'm not as high on Iowa's chances there on others, but the family ties you can't look past, which is why I think if you're Iowa, you make him a priority for him and see where it goes. But it's just, you need to see something more out of him and some love for Iowa before you could say they have a really good shot against some of those national programs.
Right. And let's face it, that Nebraska is going to be recruiting hard.
Yeah.
Nebraska's going to be a better powerhouse when it comes to this stuff. Scott Frost is an established coach at a high level.
And he's coming off a fake national title. However you want to claim it, his team went undefeated. Yeah. The kid the guy is an up-and-coming coach. He could sell that at any Power 5 program that he would have went to this year. And the fact that Nebraska only adds to it.
And they're gaga for him right now in that market. So I would say if you're in Omaha and the Huskers are targeting you, it's going to be tough to get them across the border because the last 2 staffs, in a lot of cases, ignored Omaha or ignored a lot of really good players, which is why they ended up at Iowa.
Yeah. Jim wants to know if Iowa is looking at any point guard recruits. I'll let you handle that, Mr. Former Basketball Player.
For next year, not very seriously. They are exhausted, and they're still 1 over on scholarships. But it wouldn't surprise me if they do snag somebody if, the attrition wheel starts spinning, which is college basketball. It always spins. Now, for 19, DJ Carton out of the Quad Cities is a guy that they're really gunning for. They need somebody like that. It really, with basketball, I see two key areas right now for Iowa. And point guard is not the priority that people seem to make it out to be. They have this vision of what a point guard is supposed to be. Well, the numbers say otherwise. The two guard is where they're having the biggest problem. In their 12 wins, in 11 of them, Bashi Daly and Isaiah Moss combined for at least 14 points. In their 15 losses, only 5 times do they combine for 14 points. When they are not playing at a high level, which is unfortunately for them half the time, that's when everybody contracts on Bohannon, and that's when the offense doesn't run. You need that two guard to space the floor, to move the ball, and to play some defense, and they're not getting it at all. Next year with Joe Wieskamp in, then I think your 3 position ends up being Isaiah Moss, possibly Jack Nunge, which helps your defense out. But they do need that guard who can break down a defense once in a while and play defense himself. They don't have that.
No.
They don't have that coming in either.
No, they don't. Jeff wants to know, should Iowa fans be concerned about the offensive line next year? This is one of my super sneaky kind of issues there that people aren't talking about now and might not for most of now up until preseason camp, but could be talking about during the season, because Iowa lost Welsh, Iowa lost Daniels. Those were your 2 best guys inside. And there were times last year Iowa didn't play great on that interior part of that line. There was the Purdue game, which was probably Daniels' worst film.
Yeah.
If NFL teams evaluate that, they're going to have a lot of questions for him off of that game. There was games they just didn't get a great push inside, and that coincided a lot with a lot of the times you didn't see them moving the ball much on offense. I'm not just talking about on the ground. I'm just talking about in general. And that interior line play, they need that if they're going to be able to run the ball at Iowa. And it's a huge question mark right now because you lost your 2 biggest guys from there, and there's no real obvious answer. There's a lot of names you could throw out there that you could see starting, but there's no one I could say today that is a guaranteed lock to start. There's 5 or 6 guys that we could name who any combination of that could be your interior starting line for next year.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you start at center if you're at Iowa. I think the tackles are set unless they view that guard is such a deficiency, and somebody like Mark Kallenberger would be a better right tackle than right guard, but then Tristan Wirfs, could be an All-American at guard. But that said, I think Keegan Render is probably your guy in the center spot right now because he has experience doing it. That's unless they have somebody in place that they think, Cole Banwart, maybe even one of the other guards, a Ross Reynolds or somebody might step in there and be a better center prospect, and they want to keep Render at guard. I don't know. We'll find out a little bit more of that in a few weeks. But I think that's possible. But they are dangerously thin. Last year, as we saw, when both tackles went down, they had some good games and then some really bad games. I mean, offensively against Wisconsin, against Michigan State, Northwestern wasn't any good. Minnesota wasn't that great. They had an NFL running back and they couldn't do anything with it. So I think this is an area they have to get better at, or you could have a 10-2 team that ends up 8-4 because of the offensive line play.
Yeah, it's a real. I don't want to say concern, but it's something you definitely want to watch during the spring because there could be guys that develop and come along, and it's not an issue by the time you get to that spring game. But for right now, because it's a lot of guys who are either inexperienced or haven't been asked to play consistently or play at the level Iowa would need them to, it's definitely something you have to keep an eye on. And I think the coaching staff would have the similar kind of eye looked in that direction as they start the season when they get to spring practice. Where are we at? Michael wants to know about Iowa. Will Iowa recruit California and Georgia more now? California, definitely not. Spencer was kind of, I think, a one-off. They haven't spent a lot of time in that state. Quarterback is the one position Iowa will kind of go national with a little bit just because everything they're looking for, if they can find a kid they like, they'll go to him wherever he is. You have Spencer in California. Peyton from the year before was out of Texas. the kid whose name I can't pronounce, out of Connecticut in the 2019 class. So there, I put you all across the country just with those three guys. So that's a quarterback thing more than anybody else. Georgia, yeah, I think they're going to do Georgia more. Kirk kind of hem and hawed a little bit, hedged a little bit there on what they would do with Georgia in the future. But recruiting is all about relationships. It's something Calvin Bell talked to both of us about when we spoke to him after signing day. The new coach Foster's recruiting territory with the best relationships is the South, and specifically Atlanta and Georgia. Your best chance to maximize his time on the road is in a state Iowa's already trying to pull guys, and they pulled one guy out of that in each of the last two classes. Bringing somebody like Foster aboard could increase your ability to – you're not going to sign five guys out of their year, but maybe get a little bit higher quality player than what you've already gotten, or somebody who is less of a developmental project than maybe Trey Creamer probably was 2 years ago. So, yeah, I think you'll see them spend more time in Georgia. I don't think you'll see huge numbers down there, but I think you'll see one guy, maybe two guys a year coming out of that area for Iowa for the next couple of years.
You know, and you've got Seth Wallace, who coached at Valdosta State. You know, he's now more in the Florida area. You know, they were tremendous back, you know, getting close to 20 years ago with Brett Bielema there. I mean, the players on that 2002 to 2014 were all, you know, Floridians mostly. And then Georgia, you know, Atlanta's a huge area, you know, and one of the things they look at is when they go out of the region is airports, and they do have direct flights. The problem is for a team like Iowa going to foreign territory, and Georgia basically is that then other teams start looking at you. If you go and all of a sudden you get a recruit, he commits and he's from, you know, the Atlanta area, or like a Jaden McDonald, you know, look at what happened with him in reverse, which was Rutgers had him recruited. Then all of a sudden he couldn't make their official visit. He decides, I'm going to open it up. Boom. Iowa gets in there. In that case, if Iowa goes down and offers a kid in Georgia, even if he gets a commitment, then all the ACC and SEC schools start looking at him. You know, okay, do you really want to go to Iowa? It's cold in the wintertime. You know, we're only 5 hours away versus, you know,
an airplane,
15-hour drive for your parents. They can't afford to go up there every weekend. Then all of a sudden those things spill over. That's why they don't recruit it very well. And then if you get a guy in there, how good is he going to be long term? I mean, it's been a problem. So I think, you know, I'm intrigued. I don't know that they're going to set up camp and be successful long term.
Anything outside of the Midwest is essentially a secondary option for him. So any of the ones we talked about, including Trent's next question about Iowa doing more with Florida, getting back into there more with more athletes, it's the same way. I don't think you're going to get to a point where 8 guys in the class come from Florida, but Iowa is putting effort inroads back in that state. You might be able to answer this better than I can, but it seems like they're doing it more now than even 2 years ago, and maybe even 4 or 5 years with them. But you mentioned Seth Wallace, he's there. Kelton Copeland is from Florida, so he knows a large portion of that state. Iowa has brought in, I believe it's 3 guys in the last 2 classes from Florida. They throw out a lot of offers there. They've got skill position guys in not just 19 but 20 as well, and maybe I think even 21 from that Florida state. They're doing stuff with guys in that state, but it's going to be the same thing. You know, a good class for you is going to be 2 guys, maybe 3, and the expectation should probably be about 1 per year.
I know, that's a lot of resources to dedicate to a state like that. It's understandable. A lot of times they're far from home. I mean, you look at an athlete like an Adrian Falconer, beautiful-looking athlete. I mean, incredible. You look at him, you're like, wow, this guy's well put together, and he doesn't do anything while he's here. You know, and then he's gone. And they've had a lot of those stories too. So, but they're going to scour it. I mean, really, you know, and Kelvin Bell told us this, and it makes total sense. For a team like Iowa, you have your core, which is the old Big Ten, and then outside of it, play to your assistant's strengths. If they've got relationships in Florida, go to Florida. If they don't, go to Texas like they did. They cut out of Florida in 2013, I think it was. The Farron said, well, we're done there, which it got panned widely. Now they're back there because they got the guys to do it.
All the recruiting is what spots can your guys bring you guys in. That's why they left it. They don't have as many guys who could do it as before, and that's why they're back now. They have guys who have some ties to the area. That's why you see a lot of those spots outside of, you know, Iowa, Illinois, you know, the Midwest, all that kind of fluctuate in and out over the years because it just depends on who the newest coach where he can go recruit.
Yeah. All right, Joel says, love the walk-on class and tradition in Iowa. How did the number of walk-ons in this class compare to previous years? It seems like we got more this year, but I have no idea. They're earlier, and they're announced earlier than in the past. It makes more sense to me. Go after these guys because, you look at last year's starters. Brandon Snyder, walk-on. Jake Gervais, walk-on. Bo Bauer was walk-on. On the other side of the ball, you got, Peter Picard. You've got the tackles, originally, Boone Myers, Cole Croston the year before that. These guys are all walk-ons that contributed, started, and, potentially could play in the next level. So if you could develop a few of these, by all means, do it. So because when you start talking about 2-star guys and even low 3-star guys and walk-ons, there's not a lot of difference.
No, for the most part, there isn't. It kind of just comes down to, for a lot of cases, did somebody offer them at a major level or not? Because the hardest thing for a lot of kids is to get that first Power 5 offer. Once that happens, as Scott kind of said earlier, other teams start looking at you, and then offers kind of follow. And some kids get that first offer, and some kids don't. And for a lot of them, that's what it falls down into. This class, I believe, was 20 for walk-ons, which is an extremely high number.
It is.
How did Iowa get there? Some guys got put on scholarship, and you probably have some attrition. Some guys. And we don't have the full answer on that until we see the full roster completely updated for spring ball, but that's likely how you get in there. And to tie into this walk-on conversation, Alexander wants to know if Iowa's considered best for walk-on prospects in the country. Where do you think Iowa stands? Probably one of the better ones, just because they have a good tradition of it. If you're a walk-on, you want to know a couple things. Will you have a legitimate chance to be able to play at some point? And after that, would you have a legitimate shot at a scholarship? Anything with Iowa and the guys they send to the NFL is a bonus. And is, frankly, if that really sells kids, it's kind of pie in the sky kind of stuff that, frankly, shouldn't matter, but it's recruiting weird things does sometimes. Because if you're a recruit, you just want the chance. If you prove that you're the best guy at the position, or one of the guys who should be in the rotation, to get the chance to. Some teams, nope, this kid's a scholarship guy. We're going to play him over you regardless. It's kind of the way in the NFL. Some teams kind of keep throwing out first-round draft picks because that guy they got to pay a lot of money to. The undrafted free agent, nope, sorry, we're invested more in him. So if you give the kid the chance to play, they like that. And then if you give them the chance to play and they show that they are a scholarship caliber player for you, if you have a track record of giving scholarships, that's what they care about. And Iowa has those two things. And so they have it, they do it, and they do it on a very good, very consistent basis. I don't know if they're the best, but I'll say Iowa's not going to run a team for any walk-on they go after that's going to be able to say, to give a better pitch than they will, to kind of put it like that. You mainly recruit regional within the state for walk-ons. There's no one they'll be able to face in the Midwest that'll be able to have a better pitch for a walk-on than them.
Yeah, makes sense, because with Iowa, once the doors are locked and you're in there, it doesn't matter if you're a 4-star or no star. I mean, you get the opportunity, which is why we've seen, I use the example. I mean, Ryan Ward was terrific as a person, and his brother was a walk-on. Ryan Ward was a 4-star tackle, and he got beaten out by Cole Croston, a walk-on, who came to Iowa at 225 pounds. Boone Myers, who was about 250, but he was a tight end in high school. Those guys came here, earned scholarships, played. And it wasn't because, well, we got to defer to the 4-star. No, it was better. And it happened early in their careers, too.
Yeah. Zach wants to know about David Bell. Says he saw that he'll be at a junior day in March. Where does Iowa stand with him? Yes, I believe March 4th is the weekend he's coming. There's some guys they have come in this class, but my guess is the big junior day weekend will be that weekend in March because of David Bell, who is arguably the highest ranked player on Iowa's recruiting board. 4-star, top 100 wide receiver, the kind of top-end player they frankly hadn't been able to land is kind of what they need a wide receiver. You could step in day one and potentially play without needing too much work to get there. I wrote a recruiting mailbag that posted probably about 40 minutes ago. Delves on this exact subject that we're going into with Iowa. These top-end players, these 4-star, these 5-star players, especially guys that are out of state, and what happens with Iowa. You need to see with these guys, because David Bell has Ohio State and Michigan as his offers. This is an out-of-state kid that's a national recruiting number, which is kind of what we talked about earlier. That's a tough battle for Iowa to win in-state. It's extremely hard to win out-of-state. Now, Iowa was the first to offer Bell. They've been there with him the longest. That's kind of what you need to have a shot to win this kind of guy. But at the same time, it's hard to beat Ohio State out on recruits. That's just the way the world exists here. You need to have these kids show you that they have some sort of interest or love for your program through their actions. And attending a junior day is a big one on that. To see if they come to a junior day, to see if they make unofficial visits. I think Bell's already made 2 unofficial visits to Iowa. If they come camp at your school, these are the kind of things that give you an indication you have a shot with this kid. Iowa's offered like 8 kids in the 247 composite top 100. I can probably tell you at least 5 or 6 of them long shots at this point, because I don't think they'll be showing up for those kind of things. But Bell is one of the kids that's there that you can dream about if you're an Iowa fan. I don't think it's a guarantee. It's a long shot. If they sign him, it will probably be the best recruiting job Iowa's done on an individual player in years, probably a decade plus, because you beat out Michigan, Ohio State, whoever else comes in on him for an out-of-state kid. That said, Iowa's not going to shy away from him because they think they have more than a puncher's chance on him. But the way, for what it takes for Iowa to land one of those top-end players, those 4-star, 5-star players, it's got to be in state, got to be a kid from a surrounding state, usually whose recruitment level only goes regional. Right now, Brock, the running back out of Illinois, falls in that category. Yeah. Michigan State's offering him. Minnesota's offering him. It's Midwest kind of teams. Bell's at a higher level than that, or it's somebody who has ties to the program. A.J. Epineza is the prime example. As a 5-star kid from Illinois, legacy here, that's how he got here. You know, it's an in-state player like Max or somebody with ties is usually your best bet. Bell doesn't fall into that. But, yeah, you've got a shot, but, I wouldn't hold your breath now. You've got to see a lot more stuff out of there to think you have a real great chance to land it.
James Daniels was that way.
Yeah.
His brother was here. Yeah. He picked Iowa over Alabama and Ohio State. His dad went to Ohio State, and it was really twofold. One, his brother was here, and that was probably the tipping point. 2, Iowa's track record with offensive linemen. Iowa can battle those programs when it comes to things like offensive linemen, tight ends, defensive backs, most of the time defensive linemen, and occasionally running backs. But there's positions. Wide receivers not one that they've had success with, so they lose the battles even in state. Look at guys like Amara Darboh and Oliver Martin, and going back a little ways, Adrian Arrington. They leave the state because they're better, and Iowa doesn't have that track record, so it's going to be tough. But then again, you got a guy like David Bell, who maybe he figures, you know what, if I can go there, I can build my own legacy, instead of being just another 4-star at Ohio State or Michigan. I don't know, but I think the fact he's coming to junior day is a good thing.
Yeah, it's a good sign. You need somebody, if you're Iowa, especially in a position like wide receiver, who wants to build their own thing, who's a unique thinker, who's somebody who's not afraid to be themselves. Just look at it. Most of the people that end up being those 4 or 5-star top kids end up going to the top programs. It's not a knock on them that's saying they don't want to do their own thing. That's just what happens, and they all have various reasons that are all rational and make sense for doing it. Rare is the kid who does it, which is why I kind of put the brakes on a lot of those 4 or 5-star kids that I was after. It's good to go after, especially early. If you land 1 or 2 of them, that's going to make your class. And you'll know relatively quickly if you have a shot with them or not, and whether it's worth continuing on. But most of the time, for a program like Iowa, it's just a tough battle to win.
Yeah. Brandon asked about wrestling recruits. I'm not really versed enough in it to go too far. I will say that one of their red shirts I like a lot, and that's Jacob Warner. I think he'll walk in and get in the lineup and be a good player. But I don't know. So I apologize. I'll try to check back and maybe answer in a future one.
Yeah, wrestling recruiting, it's definitely a niche there. Not something we know too much about. But yeah, give Scott time. We'll figure that one out. Brett wants to know, or he wants to talk about multiple point guards for Iowa, go back to the point guards conversation, the depth aspect of it, and also putting Bohannon off the ball. You don't need Bohannon off the ball. It's good to have as a secondary option there. He's a good enough point guard on his own that it works for him. I think the bigger issue with the point guard is depth, because Iowa tends to fall to pieces when he comes off the court. Almost every time it's a run that the other team goes out, and it's going to be a 6, 8, 10-point run that they just go because Iowa doesn't have another point guard, ball handler that they can do. And if he ever gets in foul trouble, that's just a death knell almost for this team. It's a bigger issue from the depth standpoint because he does such a good job running the point that, what you do with him is fine. There's other aspects to his game. You can run with him being off, as the off guard, but it's not that he plays better as an off guard. He plays great as a point guard. It'd be a nice extra wrinkle to add if you had that depth, but the depth is the most important thing there.
I've said for a while, I think that one guy that would be really, if they could have somebody like and Anthony Clemens that can play alongside him the way Anthony played alongside Mike Gazelle for several years. That would be a perfect combination along with a shooting guard, because Anthony can do all those things. I mean, basketball isn't as neat in a box as we sometimes make it out to be. It's not that somebody is, oh, you're a 3, you're not a 4, or you're a 2, not a 3 or a 1. You play those positions a lot, especially in the motion offense. And I think what you look at with, okay, what does Jordan do well versus what does he don't do well? Okay, he's not necessarily a driver or a penetrator. Okay, that's fine, but he's an incredible ball handler. He's one of 3 guys, I think, you know, I saw the stat, what was it? I can't remember the stat, but, you know, he just has, you know, an uncanny ability to distribute the ball if you allow him to do it. If you're not playing 3-on-5, which I think is part of the problem with Iowa's offense. Not all the time, though. I think we criticize the offense a little bit too much. They average almost 80, you know, they average 80 points a game. The problem is when the offense bogs down a lot of times when Bohannon's out, then that's when they get up the run, and their defense is dreadful, absolutely pathetic when they start when they're not scoring, because their transition defense is as bad as I've ever seen, and then they're not good in the half court either. But you know that's another. You know we could go all day on that. So I don't think the problem is Jordan Bohannon at the point. The problem is the 2 not giving enough to the 1.
Which goes into what Jim was talking about a little bit after this. You know, the efficiency with guarding is, yeah, it's part of a bigger issue. If they had somebody who's athletic enough to defend the perimeter, Bohannon's defense isn't going to be the thing people are talking about. And his ability to shoot is very good. You want to utilize that. You can utilize that, and you can utilize it when they get into the half court, and they do. Just because he's a point guard doesn't mean he passes the ball and gets into the offense, and then he's done. Like, his roll's over until they have to set up a new play. Right. You can get motion, you can get movement where he gets 3-point looks, and it happens all the time, especially when they kick the ball inside and kick it out. If the guys inside see him open, they're going to send the ball right back out to him because they know how good of a shooter he is. So point guard, so much of a point guard is just transition, ball handling, and initiating you into your offense. From any point on after that, they are in a lot of ways like your 2 guard or your off guard or anything else, because if they're going to score, they have to find a way to do it, whether it's their ability to be a spot-up shooter like he is, or if you're somebody else who can attack the basket when you get the ball, when they swing it, and you can just go because the defense is out of position. There's multiple ways to do it, but for being that point guard, it's really only a few things that you need for that. When you need somebody to protect the ball, when you need to get it up the court, and Jordan does a really good job of that. His transition, you get the ball in his hands in transition, he's really great at that. I think he's almost phenomenal at it.
Yeah, I mean, nobody else has had more 10 assist games than him at Iowa history, and he's only a sophomore. I mean, you know, he's had double-doubles with 10-plus assists more than any other player in school history. So I think that's what he does well. There are some deficiencies, you're right. But I think right now, you know, defense is part of it, but defense isn't for everybody. I think it's a shirt you could make for this Iowa team. Defense isn't for everybody.
Yeah,
right. So I think that, you know, because they're giving up 84.4 points per game in Big Ten play. Yeah. Second worst in Big Ten play since 95. That's not on Jordan Bohannon. That's on everybody. And I think the 2 guard at times, let's say 95% of the time, is disinterested in defense. So they need a better job there.
Yeah. Interesting question here from Gary. It says, with the junior day visitors coming up this week, do we expect any commitments for Iowa this weekend? Scott and I were talking about that before we started all of this. I don't think so. And let me preface this by saying we're really early in the 2019 stuff because so much of our focus was kind of on closing out 18 and tracking all the offers they did in January for 19 and 20 kids. So the info we have on some of these kids isn't as great as it would be probably in a month or later on down the road. But a good chunk of the kids is expected to be here for this time, or 20 and even into the 2021 class. I don't think you'll see any commitments there, so that kind of cuts down the people who are kind of eligible. There's nobody here that I think that's visiting this weekend that looks like they're on a spot to be this is the time to lock them up. They're kids who are coming in who say they want to do it in the spring or in the summer, but they still want to evaluate their options a little bit, go down and look at some places. Now, that said, kids go to junior day, they fall in love with it, commitments can happen. Jeff Jenkins didn't commit off of a junior day or anything, but did it early in 2017. You get kids who have those feelings, and you could see a kid commit really early for something like that. I don't think it'll be this weekend, but I wouldn't be surprised if you see somebody who visits this weekend in 19 who commit shortly thereafter. They just want to take some time to make sure what they experienced wasn't just kind of going with the moment and making sure those feelings are there, which happens a lot in recruiting. But it wouldn't surprise me if it happened, but I also don't think it will.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe a one kid or something too, something like that at the most. But so expectations probably not, but
it's recruiting. You never know.
You know, it's hard to do that. Rob, by the way, you know, I'm Catholic and it's Ash Wednesday, so that's what I got on my forehead. See, Kelly asks, how was I sitting on DJ Carton recruitment? That's still remains to be seen. I know they're very interested and they check on him all the time. I know he likes Iowa, and I think that's one that, you know, they've made a priority. So where are they sitting now? It's a little too early to say if I would call them the favorites, but I would say they're definitely in the mix. And I know that from just talking to people who are kind of associated with his recruitment.
Yeah, Trevor wants to know how many Big Ten basketball teams will make the NCAA tournament this year. My joking answer to you is 2, in Purdue and Michigan State, and the rest of them almost don't matter because
Ohio State.
I'm not sold on that team. First-year coach, I'm not as so they'll be in it, but those are the 2 teams I think have a shot. So he's right. People will say Ohio State with a shot. I just look at them. They look to be the profile team that came out of nowhere that you expect that ends up the 3 or 4 seed that loses, and then you look back and go, well, they didn't have a whole lot of experience. Their star was not really that, experienced on the stage. They get drawn against a team that has either plays into their weakness or has a lot of upperclassmen. They could go out. I could be totally wrong on that, but I think there's 2 legitimate teams. If you want to put Ohio State in, go for it. Michigan might be able to win the game, but man, there's just not a lot of really great teams in the Big Ten this season. It's kind of, I think, kind of a down year for a lot of the part.
Well, yeah, it's usually much better throughout. I mean, sometimes Team 11 is almost as good as Team 6, and right now you've got about 4 or 5 good teams. I'll disagree with you with Ohio State because I thought first time I saw them play Iowa, they're not that good. Then the more I've watched them, I'm like, oh, okay, they're better than what I expected. They're actually doing something with this roster versus what happened with Thad Matta's last handful of years. Kyoto Bates-Diop is tremendous, really good player. I don't disagree that they probably could be a 3 or 4 seed and get bounced in the first day of the tournament. That's what makes the tournament great. But Purdue, Michigan State and Purdue are ranked really high. I think they both have potential. I think Michigan State has the personnel to go the distance. I don't know if they get there. Purdue, I think, has the grit and the personnel to get close. I think Michigan makes it, and I'm going to say Nebraska makes it, even though they've got kind of this weird imbalance between what they're doing in the Big Ten and what they did before. But I don't think you can dismiss them. I would probably go with 5 this year in the Big Ten, make it, and then 2 in the Sweet 16, probably Purdue and Michigan State.
Yeah, that's probably around the right number. Nebraska is the interesting case because that's, I think, the definition of a ball team.
They're a 40-year-old man with cholesterol levels off the charts.
Are you speaking of my personal knowledge?
Not yet. Thankfully.
Where was the next question? Interesting one from John on what's holding Iowa back from signing standout wide receivers? One, the offense. They run a pro-style offense. It's changed a little bit. I think it's a little bit more wide receiver friendly now this past year, but they only have 1 year with it. And you have a lot of kids that play in high school in the spread, and they know that offense. They know those offenses tend to be pass-centric. They can put up good stats there, and they'll want to play there. And so for a kid to say, hey, why should I play with you when I have the spread offense sitting out there, probably doesn't sit well with Iowa, which wants kids that say, hey, we want to come love to play with you, almost recruit them to Iowa a little bit. The receivers probably aren't going to do that. Iowa starts their self pitch a little bit too, with you have to be able to walk to see the field. A lot of those wide receivers aren't going to want to hear that. And I also think part of it is wide receiver is kind of known as the diva position. That in NFL circles, they kind of personality profiles of positions, and that's kind of the profile of wide receivers in general. Is they're the divas, kind of like your rock stars or your your big hit singer people. They have very similar personalities to that, and that is a total polar opposite of what Iowa wants on its staff. So in its players and in its culture. So I think that factors into it. as well too. You combine all that together, you're looking. I think that's the hardest position probably for Iowa for anywhere on the board is that wide receiver spot.
I think they're recovering from the Greg Davis error, and I don't. It's spelled ERROR. When you really look at right before he got here with Ken O'Keefe as the offensive coordinator, you had Marvin McNutt, 82 catches, 12 touchdowns. Big Ten's receiver of the year was Marvin McNutt. DJ Daryl Johnson-Koulianos was terrific for those years. When they got Tavon Smith in this current offense would have been terrific. Unfortunately, he was saddled with a really bad offense. They were looking for point guards. They were looking for like spread-type slot receivers in the last offense, and in a cold climate that doesn't run the spread, it just didn't work. We look at the attrition the last handful of years. I mean, they've got one guy. I mean, really from the 2013 to 2016 classes, they've had two guys stay the full term. And one of them isn't even full term yet. That's Devontae Young. The other one is Matt Vandenberg. Devontae Young hasn't caught a pass. So they really had this gaping hole. So when you're trying to sell this to a receiver, it's like, what have you done?
And it doesn't help that if the kid watches an Iowa football game, they're not seeing wide receivers do a lot the last couple of years. I mean, Scott just mentioned when you basically whiff on multiple classes in a row like that, position is going to become a crater, and that's what it is. And so it's struggle. If you're a recruit and turn the game on, they're throwing to their tight ends. The wide receivers aren't catching the ball. If they had Matt Vandenberg, who never got hurt for the last go around, that might change things a little bit because he was on pace to be an all Big Ten wide receiver. You could at least throw the footage of him going, okay, the wide receivers now are developing. You can kind of massage a little bit and throw tapes of him and show these kids and say, hey, watch this kid play. This is what we do when we have receivers. But there's 2 games of that footage from 2 years ago, and then he got hurt and he wasn't the same this past year. And so you have to go back into the vault several years. And for a player having to go back 4 or 5 years to show him some of those highlights is kind of like showing him footage from 45 years ago. It's the same thing for him. It's ancient history.
Right. I mean, I remember Marvin McNutt, but I was also, I would sit on Iowa Live on the set, and I had 2 guys come up to me and go, who is that? And they're in high school, and they're the same age as these recruits. I'm like, that's Marvin. Oh, okay. They didn't know, because that was 6-7 years ago when he played. And so for these guys, that's like a million years ago. So, you look at Oliver Martin. Yeah, I mean, if they would have been able to show him something. But if you go to college, you want to go to the best college for what you want to do. And trying to train to be a wide receiver this isn't the place that's had any success in a long time.
Yeah, we've hit pretty much all the other questions sitting out there. Robin says, happy Ash Wednesday. And then Hawkeyes have done a really nice job improving their footprint and advancements in recruiting. Yeah, if you just look at the last 2 classes alone, they've brought in more players that you could see who have the potential to be impact players. Not all 4-star players, though they've brought in a good chunk of those guys. But you have some 3-star guys, too, that you could very easily see doing what Noah did at tight end. Noah Fant did at tight end from, what was he, the 2016 class, where they become an impact player. They kind of overhauled their recruiting philosophy a little bit, going back to more of the Iowa kind of player that Iowa wants, that they know thrives here and succeeds here, and they've identified them, not just at the 2- and 3-star level, but you have 5-star AJ Epineza who could do it. You have 4-star player Tristan Wirfs who could do it. You have a bunch of 6 or 7 guys in this class they just signed last week who had a 4-star designation out of one recruiting service or another who could do it. So I think they've figured out some things earlier. They're throwing offers a little bit earlier out. They've done some things that have helped them put together, I think, the core of a team that could be pretty good for Iowa coming up in this near future.
Yeah, exactly. I think this is they've made a more concerted effort to be more Iowa-like, especially after all the decommitments in Texas a few years ago with, Chevin Callaway, who's a huge decommitment, Benjamin, of course, Gavin Holmes, Bo Corrales, all those guys that, would have fit what they wanted them to do, but they couldn't, they didn't fit the profile. So I think they're doing a better job of fitting. This is what we want in a player, and these are the skills we need. And so I think they've done a good job of marrying that, and I think we'll see that coming in the future.
Yeah. Robin says Iowans leaving the state is not unexpected and pretty natural. Good thing AJ didn't grow up in Iowa. It's that way in every state. Once a kid hits a level of recruiting that several of the blue bloods, national powers are in on him, it's extremely hard for the in-state school or in-state schools to land them. Some of those kids do stay when they hit that spot. Iowa has a history of them. Iowa State's even landed a few of them. Alan Lazard being the biggest one there. It does happen sometimes,
Right.
but in all 50 states, I mean, it happened in Texas. Texas recruiting used to always be Texas and A&M, and up until this past class, you had about a 5 or 6 year window where almost any blue blood could come in and would have as good of a shot or better than landing a star player out of Texas than either Texas school. Alabama did it. LSU did it. Oregon did it. Ohio State did it. It's that way in any state. Once a kid hits a national level of recruiting, odds are they're going to the power program, no matter if it's one in their neighborhood or one half a country away.
And let's face it, when you're 18 years old, you want to conquer the world. You want to go see the world. You want to do different things. And, and not that, and I grew up here in the state, so I know it very well. But I remember being 18 years old and going, man, I want to go to Florida State. I want to go to Arizona State, and that was just, I didn't make it there. I did go to Arizona for a little while, but, you want to try something new and be adventurous. So sometimes that's a natural wanderlust that the kids face. So. Well, thanks everyone for all of your questions. So I guess we're pretty well done.
Yeah. So everybody enjoy your Valentine's Day, and we'll catch you later, probably next week.
Yeah, sounds good.
All right.
Thanks.
Bye.